one of the first uh, inflection points, as it were, in my life was the day I decided not to continue in academics and left my PhD midway to work for next 10 years among the slum dwellers of Delhi, among the unorganized shop hands, and the unorganized youth. And for those 10 years, I spent organizing trade unions of headload workers and so on and so forth. During this time, I had gotten married, I had two daughters, so I started looking for work. And at age 41, I drifted into the electronic media. So this is the second inflection point in my life. For 15 years, I worked with various media companies, floated my own company, etc., etc. And then I landed up running a creative activity center for children. The center was aimed at providing all the opportunities for developing a rounded personality, opportunities that do not exist in schools. So unfortunately, the experiment didn't succeed. The gentleman who was funding it funded it from his own resources, suffered a loss of 4.5 crore rupees in 4 years, and the center had to eventually be wound down. But my most important inflection point happened in this center. I realized that kids growing in this city, growing up in a city like Delhi, know nothing of the city. Nothing. They get up in the morning, get ready, get into a bus, go to school, come back, stay at home, because the open grounds, open spaces are no longer safe. So the kids stay at home. When parents return from work, they are chaperoned to go out and work, to play for half an hour, come back home, complete your homework, grab a bite, go to sleep. Next morning, the rigmarole begins again. Those children whose parents have some money, they go to Hong Kong or Bangkok in the summer breaks. Whose parents don't have money, those kids go to meet Nana Nani or Dada Dadi. And then summer breaks end and you are again commuting to school, commuting back, etc. So I thought I'll introduce the city to these kids. And one day I was just sitting in the open ground. We had a large space, and a flock of birds flew over. And I asked these kids, what birds are these? Sparrows. There are no sparrows in Delhi. This was a bunch of crows. These are kids who are 6, 7, 8. They didn't know the difference. Another flock of birds. What birds are these? Sparrows. These were parrots. That is when I decided to introduce kids to the world around them. And out of which was born Discover Delhi Walks. And I started every Saturday, every second Saturday, I'll tell the kids we are going to such and such place. All those kids who came, we got into vans and we went. And I followed them, showed these places to them chronologically, beginning with the first Delhi, Mehrauli, then the second Delhi, then the third Delhi, then the fourth Delhi. Chronologically we were moving. We were doing Firoz Shah Kotla, which is the 5th capital in Delhi, and there was this 9-year-old kid who asked me, "Sir, why do you show us buildings, only buildings built by Muslims?" And that set me thinking. I contacted the child's parent. This child was a Malayali kid. Both the parents were from Kerala. They were working in the IT industry. They had got a comfortable job in Delhi. So I called them and I said, what is going on? How is this child asking this question? They said, we celebrate all religious festivals, Christmas and Diwali and Holi. Many of the festivals that we do not celebrate in Kerala, we celebrate them here because everybody is celebrating this. We have a very inclusive kind of a thing. We don't worship, we don't go to temple, we don't discuss religion in these senses at home. And they were really surprised. How is a 9-year-old kid reaching these conclusions? I told him that, Muslims ruled this city for 800 years, so you're likely to see more buildings built by them. And then the English came and they have built, and you see those buildings in New Delhi area and other places. But it is this that I consider, this question asked by this kid, which was the inflection point in my life, the most important. Because then I started digging into this understanding. And I started exploring into what is Indian, what defines us, the entire question of identity. And I began with the food we eat and the clothes we wear. And I realized, after digging into quite a lot of historical references, that no stitched garment is of Indian origin. Nothing. Every stitched garment has come to us from outside. The scissors were introduced into India by the Greeks. The first appearance of stitched garments arrives in the time of the Kushans, post-Greek. And the list of food that has origins outside India is endless. Some of you, I hope some of you have connections with Punjab. The traditional food from Punjab is saron da saag te makke di roti. Makkah was introduced to India by the Portuguese, and it came from South America. This is the national food of the Punjabis. And saron da saag has its origins in the Mediterranean. That is where it came to us from. And this is a list that I can go on, but I'm not going to. You get the idea. The guava is not Indian, for example. So, but I'll touch upon something else that was triggered from this inquiry. I'm sure all of you have some time or the other come across the term Islamic architecture, Indo-Islamic architecture, Indo-Saracenic architecture. You have also come across terms like Hindu architecture. But I'm absolutely certain that none of you have ever asked the question, if there is Hindu architecture and Islamic architecture, there should also be Christian architecture. We have never asked the question. As I was coming out, I was asked to write something on a post-it, and that's what I have written. Question everything. Question everything. Because we have been colonized for 200 years, and our minds are still colonized. We have never asked the question, is there Christian architecture? And you will find that there isn't. There is Baroque, there is Renaissance, there is Gothic, There is classical, there is neoclassical, or there is Hispanic, Portuguese, Prussian, Slavic, you name it. In those islands that occupied us for 200 years, you have Irish architecture, English architecture, Welsh architecture, and Scottish architecture. But in this huge subcontinent, we have only Hindu architecture. We don't have Hoysala architecture. We don't have Parihar architecture. We don't have Jat architecture, and Jats ruled large part of this country for a long time. We don't have Maratha architecture. We don't have Bengal architecture. We don't have Jaisalmer, Jodhpur, Udaipur, Jaipur, Alwar architecture. No, we only have Hindu architecture. The temples built in Himachal and the temples built in Tamil Nadu have nothing in common with each other, architecturally, and even their gods are different. I don't know whether any one of you, but I understand that there must be a few among this mix who are from South India. There must be some who are from Tamil Nadu, and they'll tell you that the most worshipped gods in Tamil Nadu is Murugan, Kartike. We don't worship Kartike at all in North India. On Kartik Purnima, we fly kites. The gods are different, the rituals are different, the language is different, the attire is different, the food is different, the music is different. How can architecture be the same? And similarly, from Morocco to Lahore, it is only Islamic architecture. There is no Libyan architecture, no Iraqi architecture, no Moroccan architecture, no Arab architecture, no Iranian architecture, only Islamic. And if you turn back and say, what are the markers of Islamic architecture, you are told the dome and the arch and the minaret. Yeah? Who built the first dome? Have you ever wondered? Pre-Christian Romans built the first dome. And it wasn't even a place of worship. This was built for the Roman Senate. Because a dome is a democratic space. Everybody sits in a circle. There is no head of the table. So inside the Roman Senate, Caesar and Brutus had equal powers. It's not accidental that most parliaments are circular. Most parliaments all over the world, the seating area is circular. But the dome was used first for a democratic purpose. Built by pre-Christian Romans. Remember this. The first people who used the dome for worship were the Jews, because Judaism predates the great Roman Empire. Then it was used by the Christians. The Muslims got a third-hand dome, and you are told that the dome is Islamic, and we have accepted it. Look around. All over North America, South America, all over Europe, Australia, New Zealand, there are domes everywhere. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have traveled to some or the other of these countries, and you have looked at these domes, but the idea that this is Islamic architecture does not strike you. But the moment you come to Central India, to come to South Asia or Central Asia, you start looking at the dome as Islamic. Where did this circumcision of the dome happen? When did it become Islamic? And why? The arch, we are told, is Islamic. The arch is actually Sumerian. It is the Sumerian people who had a phenomenally complex underground water distribution system, and they covered the drains with arches. That is where the Romans discovered them, brought them overground, make their aqueducts, and then from there they made vaulted roofs and then the dome. It's got nothing to do with Islam, nothing whatsoever. And it has nothing to do with Christianity. Architecture has no religion. And the best example of that is Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. It was built by Greek Orthodox people as a church. The Roman Catholics came and defeated the Greek Orthodox, and it became a Roman Catholic church. And then came the Byzantine Muslims who defeated the Roman Catholics, and the same building became a mosque. What is happening? The massive dome of Hagia Sophia has remained. It's more than 1,000-year-old. Only the occupiers have been changing. Nothing has happened to the dome. It is the occupiers whose religion is changing from Greek Orthodox to Roman Catholic to Muslims. Later, the same building became a museum. And now there is a extremely intolerant fellow who is ruling Turkey, and he has converted it into a mosque again. And I'll just leave one question with you, which will help you process what I have been saying all this while. The minaret has nothing to do with mosque architecture, nothing. And we have been told that every day, 5 times a day, somebody climbs a minaret and calls people for prayers, and that is why the minarets were built. It will come as a little surprise to you that the first mosque in Delhi that has minarets that can be climbed was built by Shah Jahan. And if you climb the top of that minaret and shout from there, your voice does not reach the ground. The minarets, there were no minarets in any mosque between the 12th century to the 17th century. So this whole question of people climbing minarets and calling people for prayers is a whole lot of hogwash. As is the categorization of architecture into Hindu, Muslim. And it was created by the Roman Catholic, by those who occupied us, who colonized us, who presented their architecture as secular. But our architecture, our identity to be seen only in religious terms. Thank you very much.